It's Madden 23 update season. You know, every year when the game comes out, it's followed by a ton of updates. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, and we've got our first one coming up, so let's talk about it. So the first update for Madden 23 is going to probably be early next week. There's always a first update within the first 2 weeks of release, and since there wasn't one this week, there's almost sure to be one next week. And the developers have been on Twitter talking about a bunch of different changes that are coming or a bunch of different issues they're looking into, so we're going to cover all of that in this video. I've been getting a lot of questions about certain issues in franchise mode, certain gameplay related issues, and more. Well, we have a lot of info about what's coming, whether it's going to be in the update that likely drops in a few days, or if it's going to be in the following update. That we don't know for sure yet, but we do know a bunch of things that they're working on and looking into. So we're going to start with gameplay right out of the gate, and we have to talk about the loot blitz. If you've played this game online at all, you've seen the loot blitz, probably more games than not. This is dominating Madden 23 right now, and is definitely frustrating a lot of players. Basically, it's a way to set up your defense where your linebackers get into a contain assignment and they literally loop around the offensive line. The offensive tackles have a hard time targeting these players and they literally just loop around and they get to the quarterback. Now, I know 100% they're going to patch this, but the problem I have with this is that it really isn't that hard to beat. It's just annoying to go against every game. But what's likely going to happen is once they find out a way to patch this, as we know in previous Maddens, it's likely going to open up a can of worms somewhere else, and that is the bigger issue. Because overall, from an online standpoint at least, most people are pretty happy with Madden 23. Much better than the last few years. There's a pretty good skill gap. A lot of people are liking the way the game is playing, minus a few things. So if the loot blitz is a necessary evil to not mess up everything else, I think a lot of people would agree to that. The problem is there's a lot of people that play online that just absolutely hate it, and they want it fixed at all costs. Now here's the issue. The offensive line is really bad in the game this year, and I've been saying this since the beta, since my first week on the game. I said they improved some other things quite a bit, but the one thing that got worse was the O-line. And the O-line has really never been great in any recent Madden game as it is, so the problem here is that they're not fixing the O-line in a patch. They would need to take an entire dev cycle at least to try to get the offensive line playing better. They're not fixing this on the fly. It's too big of a problem. So what they're likely going to have to do is what they usually do when it comes to gameplay related problems. They're going to have to find a band-aid fix for it, which would likely be messing up the way contains play, which they actually play good in QB containment finally, but if they go band-aid fix this and make them worse, then you possibly open up something like scrambling QBs becoming more OP like they've been in the past. Now that issue probably won't be too crazy just because of the simple fact that they did remove escape artists from the game, so it won't be nearly as bad, but that's just an example of patching this and then creating another problem somewhere else potentially. Me personally, I don't think the loot blitz is that hard to beat. Only really top tier players are tough to beat with the loot blitz because they actually adjust out of it. Your average online player is just running the basic version of this where you can literally throw it to the halfback every play because his man assignment is misaligned on him because it's an all-out blitz and you can just eat up easy yards in the flats. There's also a couple different ways to block it. You can block your running back and motion block a receiver. You can double team the left of screen defensive end and that alone will slow it down. I think there's faster blitzes in the game than the loop. The loop is just the popular thing right now, but either way, they're definitely gonna fix this in some way, whether it's a band-aid fix or an actual fix with one of these upcoming updates. And speaking of updates, if you're not subscribed to the channel, why don't you go ahead and update that right now by clicking the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of these future important videos as it pertains to Madden updates or the upcoming football games like the NFL 2K game that's coming out eventually and the college football game coming out in less than a year. Continuing on here, franchise mode. Now this is unfortunate because I feel like the last couple of years especially, franchise mode has definitely gotten some love finally. They've gotten some features added back that people wanted. They've gotten some stuff that has made the mode better, but it's also had a lot of glitches and bugs, and that is just kind of overshadowing some of the features that actually have made the mode better. It doesn't matter how good any feature you brought back could be if the mode itself is being a glitchy mess, and this always seems to happen once the game is released and a lot of users are on the game. We start seeing a lot of desync issues. We're seeing franchises get reset. I believe there's even a trading issue for online CFMs right now where it's hard to get trades to go through because that gets disabled. Now the devs on Twitter have said countless times that they are looking into this actively. Of course they don't want it to be this way. Franchise mode, believe it or not, is still the most played mode in Madden. They don't want their most played mode to be having issues. A lot of people buy the game solely to play franchise mode, and right now for online CFMs and even some offline CFMs, people are having trouble with different desync issues and resetting issues. And it just seems like over the last few years, EA servers have definitely gotten worse. I feel like that's one area of their entire company that years back was not something that was as big of an issue. When you looked at some of the other games out there, they definitely had way worse servers and it wasn't close. I'm not saying EA's was close to perfect either, but they were at least pretty decent, at least in my experience. But it seems like the last few years, they've been having more and more server issues. I mean, even in modes like Ultimate Team, the last 3 years, the menus have been so slow and laggy in that mode. There's been a lot of different desyncing issues. It just seems like anywhere on this game that you play online, it's not nearly as stable as it was, let's say, 5 or 6 years ago. And I don't know the reasoning for that. Maybe somebody has an idea of what could be causing that, but I just know that it used to be much better than it is now. Continuing on here, there is a roster update coming out today, so a lot of people that have been asking about some of the undrafted free agents that weren't on teams yet, you should see a lot of those on teams today with the latest update. And then there should be another update before the official season starts, which would be a week from now, where all the rosters should be pretty much finalized. And with these upcoming roster updates over the next 2 to 3 weeks, you should also be looking out for a lot more players getting their faces scanned in the game, specifically rookies or second-year players, maybe even some veterans that they finally were able to obtain a face scan for. You should also see other updates to existing players and new players as it pertains to equipment, maybe their hair, and just player likeness updates in general. They've been talking about a bunch of these on Twitter, so just be on the lookout for it. Of course, when these updates hit, I'm going to go through and try to find all of the updated players I can, and I'll make a video on it so you kind of know who got updated and who didn't. A lot of people have also been asking for an updated player likeness for Aaron Rodgers, as he looks much different in real life than he currently looks in the game, specifically having long hair now. They did mention that that is one that they're working on for one of the upcoming updates. Now, I touched on this in a previous video a week ago, but people are still asking about it. Yes, the new alternate helmets are coming. They're supposed to be in the game for the start of the NFL season, so that could be next week's update or possibly another smaller update following that week. And the simple reason that this one thing in particular wasn't in the game for launch is because the NFL would not allow EA to actually even create them in the game yet until recently. I think maybe in the past they may have had some issues with stuff leaking because they gave it to game developers early. I don't know if that's 100% the reason why. I would assume that it is a part of the reason, but the NFL mandates a lot of these different things, like when it comes to accessories, like in terms of the colors you can make the accessories or even certain ways you can wear your uniform. If it's technically not allowed in the NFL, they don't usually let EA put it in the game. Now, I know players break the rules all the time and they get fined, but the NFL does mandate these things for the game. So for example, if you wanted to make an arm sleeve just a random color that doesn't go along with the team colors, the NFL, for example, just would not allow that to happen. And I know this is another small thing, but I've been getting asked about this a ton on the new consoles. It appears that like jerseys don't get dirty in game. They did mention that that is also another update that's coming. The only reason I could think as to why this is happening as opposed to years past is because they updated the jerseys and the player models and the pads and all that. So I'm assuming that that has something to do with the fact that jerseys are not getting dirty, and that's an update they got to patch in. Again, if you care about those little details, that's coming in one of these upcoming updates as well. Now, if you enjoyed this video, the YouTube algorithm thinks you'll love this video right here on the screen, and you never want to doubt the YouTube algorithm.